Hello guys and welcome back to Real Sniper Tactics. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Alex. I'm a former British Army sniper. I spent 7 years conducting operations in both Iraq and Afghanistan. And today we're going to be diving into not one, but two crucial concepts that can make the difference between life and death in DAYZ. We'll be talking about the OODA loop and incorporating Cooper's colours. Mastering these tools is the key to staying alive. But before we do that, I'm going to ask you, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and a comment, as this is the only way to show the YouTube algorithm that you enjoy this content. If you're new around here, hit the subscribe button. And I want to give a special shout out to the channel members who go that extra mile to make these videos possible. So first up, let's break down the OODA loop. What is it? It's a decision making process that Colonel John Boyd developed, and it's incredibly relevant to our survival. It stands for observe, orientate, decide, and act. This is a decision making process that everyone goes through. If you understand this process, you can then understand how to undermine it and gain the advantage over your enemy. So first things first, let's break down the OODA loop, letter by letter. First, observe. In DayZ, this means constantly scanning your surroundings. Look for movement, listen for footsteps, and always be aware of your environment. Spotting potential threats early is the first step to surviving. Now orient is about understanding what you've observed. Are those distant gunshots from a player? Is it a zombie? Is that movement in the trees a survivor or just a wandering infected? Take in all the information and orientate yourself to the possible scenarios. Next is decide. Based upon your observations and orientation, you have to make a quick decision. Do you approach the town for supplies? Do you avoid it due to potential danger? Decisiveness is crucial in DayZ, whereas hesitation can be fatal. The final step is act. Execute your decision swiftly and confidently. If you've decided to engage, do it with purpose. If you've opted for stealth, move quietly and stay hidden. The key is to act faster than your adversaries can react. Now you know what the OODA loop is. You can abuse it. Just as you go through your OODA loop in your brain, the enemy is going through his OODA loop in his brain. If you come across an enemy, he has to go through the exact same process within his mind that you are going through, which means you know what he's going to do next. If he observes you, he's going to orientate himself to you. Then he decides whether he's going to engage, and then he's going to act. For example, if he sees you in a window, he observes you, he orientates himself for an upcoming firefight, he then decides whether to engage or run, and then he acts. If you reposition and you're now no longer at the window when he peeks, his entire OODA loop has to reset, because when he observes, you're no longer there, which means he has to reorientate himself, decide what to do, and then act. Whereas your OODA loop is going to be quicker, because you know where he is, you've observed him, you've orientated yourself to a different position, you've decided what to do, and then you can act. Therefore, his OODA loop is now playing catch up with yours. There are many ways to abuse the OODA loop, but this is one of the most frequent I come across within DayZ. OODA loop is basically about staying one step ahead of your enemy at all times. Another example of this, if you're in a tree line, you see two people, you observe one, you orientate yourself to engage the first, you fire upon them, and then you reposition. When you reposition to engage the second, you now have the second enemy in his head observing another player in a different place. He now has to go through an entire OODA loop to decide whether there's two players or whether one has just re-peeked. This slows down his decision making process, allowing you to have the upper hand, which is why sometimes it's easier to kill two players by yourself than it is to kill two players with two people, because you're catching them unaware. They have more things to think about than you do. Now you have an understanding of the OODA loop, we're going to move into Cooper's colours, which is another fundamental system that you need to know. The Cooper's colours are also known as the Cooper Colour Code. Is a system developed by Lieutenant Colonel Jeff Cooper to describe different states of awareness and readiness for personal defence. While it was originally intended for pilots in dogfighting scenarios, it has evolved to be used by all troops within the military, and now you can use it within DayZ. While the OODA loop and Cooper's colours are two separate concepts, they can complement each other in a survival scenario. The Cooper's colours are as follows: white, unaware and unprepared. In this state, individuals are oblivious to their surroundings, potential threats, and lack mental and physical preparedness. Yellow, relaxed alertness. In this state, individuals are aware of their surroundings, scanning for potential threats, and mentally prepared for action. This aligns closely with the observe phase of the OODA loop. Orange, specific alert. This state occurs when an individual identifies a potential threat and focuses on it. This corresponds with the orient phase of the OODA loop, where you're actively processing and understanding the situation. Red, fight-specific readiness. In this state, individuals have made a decision to take action and are mentally prepared to respond. This aligns with the decide phase and the act phase of the OODA loop, where the course of action is chosen. And finally, black, panic mode. In this state, individuals are actively engaged and have succumbed to panic. This corresponds to the act phase sometimes for unprepared individuals of the OODA loop. Black is a complete and utter breakdown of mental state. They make poor decisions and they are unreliable while in this state. New players, or people who have been in the red phase for too long, will enter the black phase. The stress of the combat and the encounter is too much for them and their brain cannot handle them, so they panic. You want to aim to be in the red while engaging the enemy. This is where you're at your most efficient, but be aware you can only stay in the red phase for so long. The red phase is also similar to the flow state that you may have noticed when playing first-person shooter games, where everything just seems to flow through you. You make the right decisions at the right time and you feel unstoppable. But as you know, this state only lasts for so long before you cannot react as quickly as you could before. This is the black state. The brain has burnt out. It cannot keep up with the pace it needs to, and as a result you begin to make poor decisions and don't react as effectively as you could. Combining the OODA loop with Cooper's colours provides a comprehensive framework for situational awareness and decision making in dynamic environments like DAYZ. By maintaining a heightened state of awareness with Cooper's colours and efficiently cycling through the OODA loop, you can make better informed decisions and respond effectively to the challenges presented within DAYZ. So let's put this into action. You spot a survivor in the distance. You observe their movement, orientate themselves to the situation, decide to approach cautiously, and then act by moving silently through cover to get a better look. Now, let's seamlessly integrate Cooper's colours into our survival strategy. In the white state, you're oblivious and unprepared. The only time you should be in this state is when you've just spawned in and it doesn't matter if you die. You're running around, just grabbing the most food you can and trying to look for a weapon. This is the only time you should be in the white state, unless you're within the safety of your base. Once you have a weapon and some food, you need to move from white to yellow, the state of relaxed alertness. This aligns with the observe phase of the OODA loop, where you're actively scanning for potential threats. This is where you want to spend most of your time within DAYZ. Once you've scanned and identified a specific threat, or, as we know, the orient phase of the OODA loop, where you're processing and understanding the situation, you are moving into the orange phase of Colours Coopers. This is where your decision making speeds up, your adrenaline kicks in, and you begin to make faster decisions. Then, finally, we're transitioning into red. We're engaging the enemy. This aligns perfectly with the decide and act phase of the OODA loop. You've made your decision and you're executing it. Be aware though, you can only stay in this phase for so long. Otherwise your decision making will plummet and you will not be as effective. And if you find yourself in the black state, it's important to remove yourself from the situation as quickly as possible. Whether that means just running and getting yourself away because your brain is burnt out from making decisions so quickly. Or if you're a new player and you're panicking, you need to be aware of the state you're in and try and calm yourself back down and enter the red phase. I appreciate this is easier said than done. By combining the OODA loop and the Cooper's colours, you're arming yourself with a powerful strategy. Practice these principles, you'll speed up the OODA loop, and you'll find yourself in lower states of the Cooper's colours, dealing with situations that you would have dealt with in higher states. For example, the more combat you get into in DayZ, the more likely you are to sit in the red combat state rather than the black. Or, spotting a player while in the yellow phase, if you've spotted 1,000 players, you're more likely to stay in the yellow phase than move up to the orange phase. Be aware though, to not get complacent. And that concludes today's video. I hope you've all learned something new today, and if you didn't, drop a comment down below and tell me where you knew this information from. If you enjoyed the content, leave a like and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a live stream. That's all from me today. Peace out and I'll see you in the next one.